Dow Jones lost more than 1,100 points. Canada lost patience and the people lost trust. Trump temporarily postponed tariffs for half the world but forgot his closest neighbor. Canada looked at the US and asked, "Wait, what? Just having fun, or did you really need to be that harsh?" Over $700 billion in trade and more than 100,000 jobs now hang in the balance. Canada, America's largest trading partner, is pulling investment, halting travel, and dumping assets. Is this just a temporary reaction? An economic bond that once seemed unbreakable. For decades, the United States and Canada have shared a stable, deeply connected trade relationship. Bilateral trade between the two nations exceeds $700 billion every year. Canada is America's largest trading partner, accounting for over 15% of total U.S. exports. Millions of jobs in both countries depend on the steady flow of investment, tourism, real estate, and cross-border goods. But now that relationship is beginning to crack, not because of a financial crisis, not because of a natural disaster, but because of something far more personal, a growing sense of mistrust and the feeling of being taken for granted. A nationwide movement, from individuals to industry. It started with a few personal decisions, individual investors quietly pulling back from the U.S. market. But within just a few months, the wave spread across Canada. Small businesses began sourcing goods from Europe and Asia. Major retail chains started cutting their reliance on American suppliers. Local governments prioritized contracts with domestic or international partners, not the U.S. Some Canadian companies have made it clear they have no plans to return to the American market anytime soon. This is no longer a reaction, it's a full-scale realignment. The economic fallout for the United States, regions once heavily reliant on Canadian tourists and investors, like Florida and Arizona, are feeling the hit. Property values are dropping as Canadians rush to sell off their real estate. Tourism is shrinking, cutting into revenue for hotels, restaurants, and local attractions. According to U.S. travel research groups, if just 10% of Canadian tourists reduce their annual spending, more than 100,000 American jobs could be at risk. States like New York, Nevada, and California, which welcome millions of Canadian visitors each year, are starting to feel the strain. A boycott driven by pride, not just profit. This wave of boycott isn't just about economics, it's rooted in collective emotion. For many Canadians, it's a stand to protect national identity. Comments seen as dismissive or domineering have sparked a deep sense of resentment. And Canada's answer? Not through arguments. Not through confrontation. But through quiet action, pulling their spending, their investments, and their travel away from the U.S. No shouting. No slogans. Just pressure applied where it hurts most. Canada is charting a new course. This isn't just a boycott. Canada is building new trade alliances. Through the CTA agreement, nearly all tariffs with Europe have been eliminated. Via the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, Canada is now linked with Japan, Australia, Vietnam, and other fast-growing economies. And they're looking further, expanding ties with Brazil, Mexico, and Argentina. Canadian companies are actively shifting supply chains from manufacturing to logistics. The goal, to reduce dependence on the U.S. market and build long-term economic independence. Who's winning and who's losing? Industries like real estate, tourism, services, and even agriculture in the U.S. are beginning to feel the heat. Small businesses are losing customers. Supply chains are disrupted. Jobs are disappearing. Meanwhile, if Canada succeeds in its diversification strategy, it won't be tied to a single market ever again. It will become a more flexible and more powerful partner at the negotiation table. Will the U.S. adjust course to repair the relationship, or will it double down? And what about the rest of the world? Will other nations follow Canada's lead and start looking for a new economic path? Don't look away, there's still so much more to come. Today is a tough day. It's a tough day for Ontario and for Canada, just as much as it's a tough day for the United States. Ontario scraps its contract with Starlink, banning the American company from bidding. LCBO halts U.S. liquor sales, causing a $1 billion loss. Canada slaps a 25% tariff on $155 billion worth of U.S. goods, with $30 billion taking effect immediately. Doug Ford declares readiness to cut electricity exports to the U.S. "I will do everything, including cut off their energy, with a smile on my face." The moment the U.S. imposed new tariffs, Canada struck back with swift and decisive countermeasures. This isn't just a temporary response, it's a calculated strategy targeting key sectors of the American economy. Ontario took the lead by scrapping its contract with Starlink and banning U.S. companies from bidding on government contracts. This move doesn't just impact the tech industry, it sets a dangerous precedent for American businesses that rely on the Canadian market. But the biggest shock came from LCBO, the world's largest liquor distributor. On the very day U.S. tariffs took effect, LCBO announced it would halt all imports of American liquor, stripping U.S. producers of one of their most important markets overnight. This decision immediately inflicted a $1 billion loss and put pressure on the entire U.S. liquor supply chain. Canada didn't stop there. It rolled out a 25% tariff package on $155 billion worth of U.S. imports, with $30 billion taking effect immediately. This hit hard on industries like agriculture, home appliances, automobiles, and technology, sectors already struggling with inflation and supply chain instability. Now they face the added risk of losing market share in Canada. These measures aren't just a show of strength, they put American businesses in turmoil. With a major trading partner like Canada cutting ties and imposing tariffs, U.S. companies have little choice but to absorb the losses or pressure the Trump administration for a policy shift. Meanwhile in Canada, a surge in support for domestic products is taking hold. Consumers are actively seeking alternatives. Local businesses are ramping up production. And regional governments are calling for even tougher actions. A full-blown trade war has begun. And Canada is proving it's anything but weak. In response to Canada's fierce retaliation, the U.S. government immediately scrambled to regain control. Fox News quickly went on air portraying America as still holding the upper hand, while White House officials reassured the public that this was merely a long-term strategy with no serious impact on the economy. But reality tells a different story. U.S. agricultural exports, wine producers, and consumer goods industries are beginning to struggle. Agricultural associations are raising concerns over plummeting sales, while tech companies like Starlink are reeling from the loss of key contracts in Canada. Meanwhile, Doug Ford continues to escalate tensions. He has declared that Ontario is ready to cut electricity exports to the U.S. if necessary, and has urged other provinces to join in the retaliation. The response was swift. American product boycotts spread rapidly, from supermarkets to the tourism industry. Economists warn that if this situation persists, the U.S. economy could suffer far more than anticipated. Rising prices, shrinking export markets, and mounting pressure from businesses are pushing America into a difficult position. Canada isn't just retaliating, it's forcing the U.S. to face real consequences. While world leaders are engaged in critical discussions, Donald Trump has been spotted on the golf course and attending private events instead. At the same time, questions about his health are growing. A new financial plan is causing controversy, and his media strategies continue to raise eyebrows. Is this a carefully calculated strategy, or is something much bigger unfolding behind the scenes? Recent footage from Mar-a-Lago has raised major questions about Trump's health. His slower movements, heavy gait, and signs of fatigue have led to speculation. At nearly 80 years old, aging is inevitable, but for someone aiming to return to the White House, this could become a major obstacle. The contrast is striking. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, French President Emmanuel Macron, and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky are holding emergency meetings on conflicts and European security. Meanwhile, Trump is absent, instead attending private events and celebrations. U.S. political history has seen many candidates struggle due to health issues. Hillary Clinton, 2016, one moment of weakness led to massive scrutiny. Joe Biden, 2024, his cognitive ability and age were constant topics of discussion. Donald Trump, 2025, if he fails to address these concerns, he could lose the trust of voters. Republican insiders have reported concerns about Trump's energy levels behind closed doors, noting his frequent need for breaks during private meetings. Additionally, recent public appearances show him struggling to maintain his usual forceful speaking style, leading to whispers about his stamina on the campaign trail. The big questions are, is Trump deliberately hiding the truth about his health, or is this just another media distraction strategy? Donald Trump recently made a shocking claim, stating that he possessed a top-secret file exposing Jeffrey Epstein's network. His supporters and influencers quickly shared the news, calling it the biggest revelation of the decade. But here's the truth, the documents were already released in 2021. There was nothing new. This isn't the first time Trump has used this strategy, the Obama wiretap claim, proven false, the Biden scandal files, heavily exaggerated, now the Epstein files, old news. This media strategy raises big questions. Is Trump trying to distract from more serious issues, or has he run out of powerful strategies to keep the public engaged? If he continues to rely on these tactics, he risks losing credibility with his supporters. Trump recently announced the creation of a crypto strategic reserve, a government-backed cryptocurrency fund aimed at boosting the U.S. economy. But the most controversial detail, Bitcoin is not included. Instead, Trump is pushing XRP, ADA, and Solana. These altcoins have strong connections to Bitwise, an investment firm linked to Trump's close associates since 2017. Is this a genuine attempt to innovate the economy, or is it just a way for Trump's inner circle to profit? Major risks involved. Crypto is highly volatile, even major platforms like FTX collapsed overnight. Taxpayer money would be used to back specific coins. This raises serious fraud concerns, could trigger a major crisis in public confidence in the U.S. financial system. Following the announcement of the crypto reserve, protests erupted in New York, Boston, and Arizona. Economists warn that if not properly regulated, this could be one of the largest mismanagements of public funds in history. U.S. allies in Europe expressed concerns about how this could disrupt global financial stability. Investors are also divided, while some see this as an opportunity, others warn that it could lead to market manipulation if the government starts favoring certain cryptocurrencies over others. Meanwhile, financial watchdog groups have begun calling for a congressional investigation into who exactly would benefit from this strategic reserve. The biggest question now, is Trump doing this for America, or just to benefit a select group of insiders? Foreign Minister Melanie Joly has just delivered a fiery response to Trump's 25% tariff on key Canadian exports. In a direct warning to Washington, she made it clear, Canada will not back down. But this battle is no longer just about tariffs. The fight has expanded into security, military cooperation, and strategic control over resources. The question now is, will Canada break free from U.S. dependence, or will Trump's pressure force a retreat? As the U.S.'s biggest trading partner, Canada imports more American goods than any other country. In 2023 alone, trade between the two nations soared past $800 billion. Yet despite this deep economic relationship, Trump has imposed a crippling 25% tariff on aluminum, steel, auto parts, and lumber. The immediate impact, construction costs in the U.S. skyrocket, shaking the housing market. Auto prices jump. American manufacturers now face higher costs on essential Canadian parts. Everyday consumers feel the heat with higher prices on food, gas, and basic goods. Economists sound the alarm, this trade war could cost hundreds of thousands of jobs on both sides of the border. Melanie Joly did not hold back. Canada has stood by the U.S. as a loyal ally for decades. Taxing our economy is like punishing your own people. Experts warn that Trump's tariffs are only the tip of the iceberg. This isn't just about trade, it's about power. The U.S. wants more than just money. They want control. Defense spending, the US is demanding Canada pay more for NATO. Resource grab, Washington wants greater access to Canadian oil, gas, and minerals. Water supply, Trump's team is eyeing Canada's vast freshwater reserves, including the Great Lakes. But Canada is standing firm. Melanie Joly sent a clear message: we will not allow strategic threats to be used as leverage against our economy. The Trump administration has accused Canada of fueling America's fentanyl crisis. But the facts tell a different story. What the numbers reveal: less than 1% of fentanyl in the US comes from Canada. China and Mexico are the primary sources of fentanyl smuggled into the US. Canada has spent $1.3 billion tightening border security and working with US drug enforcement agencies. Despite these efforts, Trump continues to blame Canada. Many believe this is just a negotiation tactic to force trade concessions. In a stunning development, the Trump administration has threatened to kick Canada out of Five Eyes, the powerful intelligence-sharing alliance between the US, the UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. What happens if Canada is removed? Canada loses access to critical global intelligence. Defense partnerships with allies weaken. The US could isolate Canada in cybersecurity and military tech. But Canada is already preparing for this possibility. The government is strengthening intelligence partnerships with Europe, Japan, and South Korea. Melanie Joly made it clear: we stand with Ukraine, and we warn that a weak deal on Ukraine will set a dangerous precedent for China on Taiwan. With Trump's trade war escalating, Canada is taking bold steps to become more independent from the US economy. Key actions Canada is taking: new trade deals with Asia and Europe. Expanding ties with the UK, the EU, Japan, South Korea, and Mexico to reduce dependence on the US. Strengthening NATO military cooperation. Building defense ties beyond Washington's influence. Investing in cybersecurity and military tech, ensuring Canada is secure against new threats. Developing domestic natural resources, keeping Canadian oil, gas, and minerals under Canadian control. Joly sent a final warning: Canada is strong, resource-rich, and independent. We will defend our economy, our sovereignty, and our future. Over 200 fans donated more than $10,000 to commission a portrait of America's 45th president. And his response? I'd rather have nothing than have that. So why did Donald Trump lash out at a gift from his own supporters? This week, Donald Trump once again set social media on fire. But this time it wasn't over a speech. It wasn't about policy. It was about a portrait. The painting, hanging in the Colorado State Capitol as part of a presidential tribute wall, has been there since 2019. But only now has Trump lashed out publicly on Truth Social. He wrote, "It's distorted beyond anything I've ever seen." And then added, "I'd rather have no portrait at all than have this." Trump accused Colorado's governor of intentionally showcasing an ugly portrait to make him look bad. He even took a jab at the artist, who once painted President Obama, suggesting she had lost her touch over the years. The comments went viral. But what truly shocked the internet was the truth behind the portrait. As Trump's Truth Social post went viral, reporters and internet sleuths quickly dug into the portrait's backstory. There was no plot from the Colorado governor. No political sabotage. No hidden agenda. In fact, the truth was far more ironic. The portrait was funded by Trump's own loyal supporters, over 200 of them, who raised more than $10,000 in just 36 hours during a grassroots campaign in 2019. Their goal: to give the 45th president a place of honor on the Capitol's Wall of Presidents. They even held a formal unveiling ceremony. This portrait brings a smile, or a scowl, to your face. Remember that you have the right to do so because this is the United States of America. The internet called it heartbreaking comedy. One user asked, if he didn't know the painting's been up for 5 years, who's really managing his public image? Others recalled a 2020 incident where someone famously swapped his portrait with Vladimir Putin's in a viral prank. But this time there was no prank. No Putin. No opposition party. Just Trump trolling himself in public. While Trump was busy fuming on social media, another major cultural moment was unfolding in Washington, D.C., the Mark Twain Prize ceremony held at the Kennedy Center honoring comedian Conan O'Brien. But it wasn't just about Conan. The event quickly became a second viral storm, thanks to a night full of classic American satire directed at people very much like Donald Trump. Comedian John Mulaney opened with a sharp jab, "It's an honor to be here at the Kennedy Center, or as it'll soon be called, the Roy Cohn Center for Strong Men Who Love Cats." The line drew laughs and eyebrows, subtly referencing Trump's infamous mentor, the late Roy Cohn, a symbol of raw unchecked power. But the real mic drop came from Conan O'Brien himself. In a rare moment of sincerity, he said, "Twain didn't write to flatter the powerful. He mocked empire, challenged arrogance, and stood with the powerless." For Twain, comedy was a weapon meant to punch up, not down. No one said Trump's name. But everyone in the room got it. And so did the internet. In the end, one timeless quote from Mark Twain began making the rounds across forums and social media. It was written over 100 years ago, and yet it fits today's moment with uncanny precision: politicians are like diapers. They should be changed often, and for the same reason. The quote wasn't aimed at any one person. It was a reminder about the nature of power, and how easily it can cloud self-awareness. It was also a quiet truth, that sometimes the biggest punchline doesn't come from the stage, but from the way powerful people react to a portrait. And if just one portrait can stir up a storm, just imagine what happens when bigger things begin to.